Everything we're taught to do about fear is wrong. You know the language, we're taught to conquer and overcome it. Say things like, I'm bigger than my fear, it's not even real. We meditate and rationalize it away. We let it go. We take deep breaths and replace it with calm. We should be doing none of this. Now, that's kind of a bold thing to say. Who am I, and why should you listen to me about fear or anxiety, which is what everybody's calling it these days? Well, let's just say I have some pretty solid real-world background dealing with a tremendous amount of fear, far more than the average citizen. For 12 years, they called me the best woman big mountain extreme skier in the world. Extreme meaning do it perfect, or else I'm either going to get seriously injured or I'm going to die. My involvement in other dangerous sports besides skiing also earned me the vote by the outdoor industry as being the most death-defying woman athlete in North America. My mom did not like this, but everyone else sure did. They called me fearless, which is the romantic ideal. But am I fearless? And if so, how did I accomplish that? Well, back then I had no clue. Sometimes the magician doesn't care or know what the magic is. The only thing that mattered was that what I did worked, until all of a sudden it didn't anymore. About 10 years into my ski career, something just felt off. I had no idea it had anything to do with fear, but I quit. Mom took a breath, but I didn't. I needed to figure out how I could be so highly functioning on a world-class level and also such a mess at the same time. I sought out the help from a therapist, but he just wanted to talk in circles about things that seemed irrelevant. I knew there had to be a deeper, more existential explanation for my troubles. So then I met a Zen master, and he called me out. And I learned more about my relationship regarding fear from him in about 10 minutes than I had 15 years taking huge risks. Namely, I learned that my troubles were coming because I was ignoring fear. And this initial realization led me on a 20-year obsession to learn more about fear until I became the expert on fear. And here's what I've learned and why all that we're doing regarding fear, aka anxiety, is such bad advice. You have this amygdala, and all data is run through this primary filter first. And if there's a threat, it'll send a shot of discomfort called fear, which first shows up in your body. And while there, it's supposed to flow like water through a hose and provide for you on-point physical reaction, all without thought. And then the second the threat is gone, 10 to 90 seconds later, so too is the discomfort of fear, until the next threat that is, though, which in today's fast-moving world is not far behind. And as a result, embrace yourself because this is going to be a shock to many of you. The discomfort of fear is flowing through your body nearly every single moment of every single day. And snakes or jumping off cliffs aside, it doesn't even have to be tied to anything that you can identify. You don't even need to leave your house, and it's there. Now, this is not bad news. This is actually good news. It's the perfect design, here to keep you sharp. The bad news is, because fear is such a huge part of our lives, you can imagine that how you deal with it is very important. And unfortunately, we've been taught to treat it as an enemy, which has put us under the trance of letting it go, rationalizing it away. Until today, we are in a full-blown resistance war against this normal and natural emotion. And war, especially one that's being carried out in your own body, against the nature of life itself, against an emotion as robust as fear, is never a good idea. I worked with a family of 3 once. The mother had depression, the son crippling anxiety, and the daughter had irrational fears. And the mom really wanted to help, so she said things to them like there's nothing to be afraid of, or you can't let fear get the better of you. She encouraged them every single day to choose to make it a great day. Well-meaning, unfortunately, this set her entire family up to live under an impossible ideal, because fear is real. There are things to be afraid of, and you're not always going to have a good day. The consequences of her message, the whole family got busy trying to control their emotions, which works. You know, there's a reason why this stuff is taught. With considerable effort, you can kink the hose and stop the flow of fear. But you have just messed with nature. And then fear all of a sudden gets backed up and grows and just starts terrorizing your life from that stuck place in some pretty awful ways. Like with the son, his trapped fear showed up as an exaggerated recirculating version of itself in the form of an anxiety disorder. Or for other people, that trapped fear eventually builds up till it explodes out the cracks in the form of a panic attack. It can also flood into any available space, namely your mind, your thoughts, and show up as insomnia, or like with the daughter, irrational fears with an S. The most interesting one is because all the emotions are so tied together, fear can go covert and show up redirected in other ways that don't even seem like fear at all. Like, for example, excessive jealousy or anger, or like we saw with the mom, depression. The word depression, after all, is Latin for pressed down. So they experienced all of these emotional issues and more, all because of their unwillingness to feel fear, leading to a kinked hose. And then, to make matters worse, because their whole system was so flooded with emotion now, they tripled down on their efforts to try to control it, not realizing that that was the very effort that was causing their emotional issues in the first place. Can you see then, fear is not the problem, and there is no such thing as good or bad fear. It's actually our unwillingness to feel fear, our obsession with positivity at all costs, that causes us to kink the hose, turning it into a problem. To the point where if you are struggling with anything in your life, whether it's emotional or a physical issue, could be psychological, mental, spiritual, overeating, drugs, alcohol, and on, your unwillingness to feel fear and resistance to it either has something or everything to do with it. But what are we going to do when our whole culture supports resistance? We teach our soldiers to be emotionless, and too many of them come home from service so out of flow with their fear, it can stay stuck, covertly running their lives, sometimes their entire lives. And handing them a puppy or taking them surfing is not going to solve that problem. Teenagers, some of them hate fear so much they punch themselves in the face whenever they feel it. The use of recreational and prescription anti-anxiety medication recently rose 34% in a single month, all in the name of trying to temporarily conquer fear. But we've hit a tipping point. The definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results. Despite all of our efforts, we are not getting the results that we seek. We are not winning this war. And when there's a escalating failure like this on a global scale, I mean, the statistics on anxiety are alarming. It's time to stop what we're doing, reevaluate, and try something entirely new. And here it is. I want you to try on the two biggest ahas that I've had in the last 35 years. First, fear doesn't hold anybody back from doing anything. We get that wrong. It's your unwillingness to feel fear that holds you back, which is very different. Second, the awful feeling we associate with fear, it isn't even fear. I've run this by 10,000 clients now, and it's unanimous. The awful feeling is the, I don't want to feel this, or there's something wrong with me that I feel this. That's what feels so awful, the resistance. Breaking it down then, if it's your unwillingness to feel fear that keeps your butt on the couch, and your resistance to the flow of it in your body that feels so awful, turn it around 180 degrees, and you find the secret to people that take huge risks, yet can still sleep at night, from business leaders to athletes to people who rule the world. They are not fearless like we assume, because not only is that impossible, but it's undesirable. Instead, what they do is the polar opposite, which is, first of all, they are willing to feel fear. And in fact, we even enjoy feeling fear. Because of, instead of resistance, what we have is, and here's the word, intimacy with our fear. And when you have intimacy with your fear, and trust me, I have done both, what you feel instead is just the energy of fear. You feel excitement, sharp, present, focus, on point, physical, intuitive reaction to everything that you do. Now, to double check, I ran this by 26 of my peers, some of the most famous extreme danger sports athletes in the world. And when we first started talking, they also, like me back in the day, didn't really understand what their relationship was with fear. But by the end of our conversation, once I shared some of these insights to them, 23 of them were nodding their heads, yes, so hard, that's it. I thought they were going to break their necks. So what I'm saying is that we don't do these things despite the fear. We do them because of the fear. Because intimacy with that misunderstood emotion is actually the romantic ideal, because it takes us into a flow state where the impossible becomes possible. So then how do you shift, of course, from resistance to intimacy? I'd start by seeing fear as a person who lives in your body, that is just there all the time. Go find it. It could be any kind of uncomfortable emotion or thought, or even ache or pain that's in your lower back or chest or throat that will be exaggerated, especially if you've been ignoring fear for a long time. Next, ask questions like, what is my judgment of this person? And be honest. Also ask, what kind of excessive resistance behaviors have I developed in order to not have to feel it? Awareness first about your resistance pattern will give you a lot of ahas similar to what I had back in the day. Then it's time to get to work. The best thing you can do to turn this relationship around is start by talking about fear in a positive way. Say things like it's normal and natural to feel, or it's not a problem to be solved, it's a resource to be tapped into. Say only positive things, period. And then, wherever it is in your body, give it a hug. You know how to do this. You've been hugging people your whole life. It's not intellectual, it's physical, right? But can you also make it emotional? Can you learn how to dance with that fear? Or can you connect with it in an intimate way like you do with your dog whenever he's upset and just really needs your attention? Find any way that works for you to love fear, and the bonus is, because it's such a big part of your life and you two share a heartbeat, this is how you truly, finally learn how to love yourself. So backing up, big picture then, can you see the conversation should not be anymore, how do I get rid of my fear? Or anxiety, worry, whatever it is that you're calling it. The conversation should be, how do I get in flow with it? Which is not going to be easy, but next time you're thinking about taking a risk, and there's a million to choose from, ask yourself, am I in the mood for fear today? And if you are, congratulations, you're about to go to the next level of your development. There actually is no learning and growing without a willingness to feel fear. Once you're out of your comfort zone, as for what to do with the emotion of fear itself, you have a choice. And you really do have to pick one or the other, because he who chases two rabbits catches neither. You can either continue to talk about fear in a negative way, which you're probably going to do, because it's so ingrained in our society. Plus, I know people who have devoted their lives to controlling their fear, and they don't want to give up the progress they think they've made. Or, the other rabbit you can chase instead takes you in the opposite direction towards intimacy. And intimacy is where the magic lies, and is the secret behind people who do incredible things with their lives. It is also the secret to ending the war and getting back in flow with fear again the way nature intended. And what happens after you end the war? Freedom. You do this, and you'll experience emotional freedom, maybe for the first time in your life.